Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Agostino Pintus. Thanks for being on the show, Agostino.
Man, I'm pumped up to be here, man. Super excited.
I'm excited too. I'm excited too. And it was a pleasure to meet you in New Jersey recently, where we were both speaking at a conference, and I enjoyed that. We had dinner and learned a lot more about you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. And a little about Agostino. He's a multifamily investor, syndicator, and entrepreneur with more than 15 years of experience in real estate, currently oversees strategic partnerships, capital development, and platform development for Realty Dynamics equity partners and investment firms specializing in multifamily acquisitions and asset management services. He's also the subject of the Bulletproof Multifamily Mindset Show, a series highlighting topics every multifamily investor should know to build their success, and is also the host of the Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast, a show focused on interviewing the top experts in the real estate and in the real estate world, and also the mindset required to build success, it's crucial. The mindset.
That's right? Everything. It's everything. Yeah.
So give the listeners a little more about, what you're up to right now, Agostino, and let's dive in, because I know you got an amazing story, and I know you are very focused on mindset, and I can't agree with that more. That especially initially, I mean, mindset is just everything.
And that's people totally underestimate that. I mean, when I was a kid, or I was born to poor immigrants out of Canada, right? My parents came over from Italy, and we didn't have a lot of money, So all these things that I wanted in my life at the time was all I ever wanted to do was computer code. I wanted to code on computers. That was my thing, right? And of course, my parents didn't have any money, so I went to school and used the library computer to learn how to code, and from there brought my own computer, and I was determined that I was going to build my own software company. I was going to be my own thing, right? Be my own man and build my own company. And by the time I was 13, I already built my own little software company, right? And I was determined, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to build my own company. And even as I grew up and I was growing up, I abandoned those dreams and I went the corporate route, right? Because that is what we're told all our lives. You go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you grow old, and you die. That's the plan. The plan has been prescribed to us by society, by our parents, by our family. That's the plan. So I ignored largely, to a large extent, this entrepreneurial bug that was there the entire time. And that cost me. That actually cost me. It cost me dearly in terms of not living to my potential, right? And what ended up happening was I ended up going the route of IT in the corporate world, right? And I took on first a director level of IT, then becoming a CIO for these big companies and Inc. 500 companies, very, very widely successful. I was already a CIO for a large publicly traded debt buyer, the biggest in the world, actually, at this point. By the time I was 32, 33 years old, I was already a C-level executive, so because I always had that drive and ambition. What made me successful with that role, though, was I was able to do whatever I wanted. I was autonomous, right? So that ability to be an entrepreneur was instilled even then, right? But, fast forward a few years, and like anything else, when you leave your future in the hands of someone else that could take it away from you, then you're vulnerable. And everyone who's working at a job right now is in that exact spot. Everyone. And I was too, And when that boss came in after building this multi-million-dollar company, huge company, they're approaching $1 billion in assets under management at the time. I built all the tech, I built the team, I built everything. They decided they're going to go into a different direction, call me into the office. They hand me the box, get out. You're done. Stole my stock and left, and I ended up having to leave, right? So here I am.
But I thought it was secure, right? I mean, I thought it this position, I thought it was secure, right?
You would think, right? You have employment agreements and all that stuff. Listen, the employment agreements are there to benefit the business, not necessarily benefit you. And people seem to think that it's a false sense of security. You have more security taking control of your own life and knowing exactly what you're going to do. But there's a reason why, Whitney. There's a reason why people they go to that job, the 40-hour-a-week job, and not do it themselves. Right? There is. I'll get into that in a second. But once that kicked off, leaving that job and see all this wild success to being told now you're a failure, you're nothing, you suck. That led me down a dark path for 10 years. I was going from job to job to job. Whitney, I would send out 500 resumes a week minimum just to get anybody to hire me, right? Because I put it into my own head that I wasn't good enough. That mindset that I put into my head said, you suck, you're not good enough, you're poor, you have no money, and you have to really watch what you say to yourself, because people tell each other, I'm fat, I'm gross, I don't dress well. You're programming your head, you're programming your mind. And when your mind's just accepting these things, that's what you become.
Pretty soon you believe it, right?
Exactly. And that's what happened with me. I started to believe that all that stuff was true about me, right? And it certainly wasn't, but I didn't know, right? And it wasn't until I made a decision that, you know what, while I was working at this company, I did have enough sense to start buying like single family and small multifamily. So I knew it's like, it throws off a little bit of money. My whole thought process at the beginning of this whole real estate thing was, if I can get enough passive cash flow out of this thing, then I don't have to worry about staying in a job or losing a job. But here I was in my 30s at a big company, wildly successful. And even then I was still worried about losing a job. I had no reason to. I had 2 cars, I had a Corvette, I had a Hummer, I had all this, this giant house, and I was still worried I was going to lose my job. It's insane, right? And people living in fear their entire life, even though they have a secure job, right?
And you briefly mentioned talking about being taught that, we're taught to go the W-2 route instead of this entrepreneurial route, right? And because of that so-called quote security and quote, that we're all taught to believe, and maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit.
It's funny. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I was watching The Men Who Built America. It's a great mini series.
Great series, by the way.
Yeah. If anybody out there wants to get an understanding as to how this country was built, it's a very short. It's I don't know, 4.5 hours of great content that shows how the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the J.P. Morgans, all these guys built this country, right? And the thing is that they applied their ingenuity outside the box to build something spectacular, right? And meanwhile, but what's the difference between them and the mass of other people that just sat there and did nothing, or sat there and just didn't do anything? Well, because it's easy. It's easy to do nothing, right? It's easier. And that's what we're taught. Our family, and whether they blatantly say, you need to work a 40-hour week, even my adult life, my dad still says, well, you don't get a paycheck? I said, no, I don't get a paycheck. I make a kill, I take down a deal, I get paid. That's it. That's how it works in this business. He's just like, oh my God. It's like, it's totally for it. He doesn't understand it, right? But he's not an entrepreneur, and that's okay. Not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur, right? But it involves believing in yourself enough to know that you're going to win, and making that decision. That's ultimately what it is making a decision to see a change in your life, right? There's a deal I'm working on right now. I wish I can share it. I can't share it yet. Maybe the next time I see you, I can share this deal. Whitney, it's going to scare the hell out of me. It's scary. It's a big, hairy, scary deal. But you know what? On the other side of that hairy, scary deal is going to be a huge, huge, monumental win. And that's the risk that many people don't want to take, either because we're trained not to. Stay safe, chill out, sit down on the couch, Netflix and chill. Do that. It's simple. It's easy. Let's go drinking on a Friday night. That's easy to do that. You know what's hard is trying to figure out how to make a deal work, try to raise, $10 million on a deal, right?
Right.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard work. That's hard work.
You and I, when you and I were speaking at that conference in New Jersey, and I was going to talk about marketing, and you were talking about mindset and a lot of stuff we're talking about today. And after your presentation, I thought, wow, it's so close. It was similar to what I was talking about. And because, even the marketing side, if you don't have the mindset, if you're not committed, like it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't even talk. It didn't. Even, I didn't know that's what you were going to talk about, but it doesn't make sense to pursue all that if you don't have that level of commitment and the mindset right before then. And so, maybe you can elaborate on, how you changed your mindset, from that W-2 employee and got comfortable with it, or just that you are going to make it, that you're going to make this happen and you're going to do what it takes to make it happen, from that so-called security level over here at this W-2 position.
It wasn't until my last W-2 job, right? And I was making really good money. This is only, 5 years ago or something like that, a little less than that. Making great money with a big company. I was making great money with a big company, and I was doing okay. The CEO who hired me liked me. He brought me on to help transform the business, and I was doing just that until one day he leaves. He quits the company and rolls, and then the equity firm hires a new guy, a new CEO. Well, this new CEO, I don't know if for anybody out there that understands corporate America, they want to bring in their own guys. They want to bring in their own team. And I was not on that team. So he, again, cans me, right? You're out, you're done. And I'm like, you know what? This is freaking ridiculous. I am not, this is the point right here. I made a decision. I will never be put into this position ever again. I mean, I'm in my 40s at this point. How many more times can you afford to get cut, laid off, whatever, right? How many times, and how irresponsible is it for you to really be put in that position when your family depends on you to bring home the bacon and support the family, support your kids, put them through school, whatever the family needs. To me, that was a big problem, right? But it took that proverbial kick in to really say, okay, you need to make a change. And sometimes, a good kick in the teeth is what you need to make that decision. And that's what it did. When I decided that I was going to make a change, I knew real estate was going to be something, but I didn't know what. I still didn't know what exactly, but it wasn't until I spoke to a friend of mine, a real estate attorney, and he explained what syndication was. And I'm like, I could do that. I could find deals. I'm at a different point. I have a different advantage because in my whole career, I've always been in a position to either raise money or talk to CEOs or whatever. So I had some experience with that. So I kind of knew how to put together a presentation and knew how to do what needs to be done when it comes to putting together a syndication. But I didn't have a team. I didn't have lenders. I didn't have inspectors. I didn't have any of that. I started from nothing, from zero. And because I was wiped out from previous businesses, I had very little money. I started with nothing, other than my own sheer will. But that's ultimately what it is that decision. And, it's funny because when I have friends on Facebook friends, that say that they want to do something. I want to get into this business, but then they post up on a Friday night again or on a Thursday night. Oh, I'm binge watching Game of Thrones. Well, that's great. How does that fulfill? How does that is not congruent with what you just said in your post on in your group, for instance, that you want your goal is to have $1 million in I don't know in assets, right? Something small like $1 million in assets. Well, it's not congruent. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Clearly, they didn't make a decision. It sounds simple, but that's all it is. You need to make that decision. I will do it. I will purchase X number of units and this amount of cash flow and this amount of assets under management. And the way that it's done is to establish a 12-month plan. Like right now, this is like we're in December right now. And you want to plan out the next 12 months. It doesn't matter what month it is, really. Who cares, right? It's these are all these months and all this time is defined by people, right? It doesn't matter. But 12 months from now, where do you want to be? And start breaking it down. 9 month, 6 month, 3 month, 7 day, 1 day. What's today's goal? How is that going to match up to all the way to the end? If Game of Thrones is not somewhere in here at the end of the 12-month period, chances are you don't need to be doing it. And to those people that might say, oh, well, you got to have fun in your life. Yeah, I understand that. Of course you do, right? But at the same time, if you want great big things to happen in your life, it requires a commitment and a decision to actually do it. That's the thing. And it's not just going to automatically happen. It's easier to work at a job because someone else is defining those exact things that I just told you. Someone else is telling you what the goal is. You just go work for that goal. Let me know when you get it. I'll give you a little piece of the pie. I'll take the rest. Thank you.
It's a sacrifice that most aren't willing to take.
They're not willing to take it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, when I first started in this business, I started buying the small deals. It was very, very difficult. I learned on my own. I didn't have any mentors or anything else like that. I learned, aside from the virtual mentors, that's how I learned. I learned from Robert Kiyosaki, Sam Zell. Those are my two guys that I focused on at first. Read all their materials and found two new mentors, read all their materials and just kept doing that. I got to learn the lingo. I got to learn the language. But most importantly, when it came time to start talking to other syndicators and partnering with them, I had something to give them, right? As a syndicator, you're syndicating deals. That person has to bring you something that they don't have. What do you have that I need, right? And unfortunately, it's what's in it for me. That's the human. That's us as humans. It's how we operate. That we want to know what's in it for us.
What was that for you that you brought to the table, or maybe you can talk about getting to that first syndication?
Yeah. So when I was living in Virginia at the time when I made that decision. Right, I actually took on a coach, and in talking to the coach and talking to him, and then of course meeting this attorney, I realized that multifamily real estate is where it is. That is what I'm going to do. I am not going to do industrial. I am not going to do commercial. I'm not going to do retail. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not mad at it. I'm focused on one thing, which is another problem in itself when people just start doing a million things at once. No. Stay away from shiny object syndrome. One thing, right? Multifamily, that's it. And then what I did was I decided I'm going to pick an area. And I saw that Cleveland was the place to do it. I saw that Ohio was the place, right? They're still in the pre-recession lows as far as the cost per unit. The average rents for a C-class asset, back then they're sitting at like $520, $550 in that range, for a nice C-class property. And I'm like, I'm going to Ohio. And that's exactly what I did.
So you picked up and moved. You said, okay, that's where I'm going to.
I went to where, again, one of those sacrifices. Oh, I'm afraid. No. I packed up my Hummer. It's the last car I had left. I sold everything, right? I sold everything to do this multifamily thing.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't have a W-2 either at this time?
Oh no, I had nothing. The reason I was in Virginia was because I had a duplex out there, right? From one that I bought like when I was working at that company, and I was selling everything. And that was I have one property left in Virginia, one single family home out there. That's it. I sold all my single family homes. I sold everything. That duplex, I just sold it. I'm going to Ohio. And I started learning that space. I started learning, and I understood and saw the opportunity. So when I spoke to my now is a really good friend of mine, who's a big syndicator, who's got over 4,000 units, and I'm telling him about Ohio, and he's buying in Texas, he's buying in like Columbus and Louisiana and Oklahoma City, all these big markets that I'm sure many of your listeners are very much aware of. Who buys in Cleveland? Cleveland, what the hell? Cleveland, what's Cleveland all about? But when I showed him not only why it's a great market, but that I have the ability to find and bring deals to the table, already underwritten, already showing where it's going to go, like complete. Here's the package. It's already handed to you on a silver platter. Fund it. I already got the financing. I got everything. All I need is for you is to raise the capital. You got the capital. Let's roll. Right. That is probably that's what I brought to the table. Right. When I first started, I put the whole deal together. And the only thing it was, I didn't have for a guy that's got 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 units, chances are they have a good network of investors, right? I didn't have that network of investors, right?
I like how you did your homework and you didn't just ask somebody or ask this person who had more experience, what can I do for you? Or is there anything I can do for you? I mean, you did a lot of legwork. You had increased your knowledge. You had educated yourself, and you actually, found a deal. I mean, you had showed commitment too by moving to this market, right? I mean, if I was that experienced operator, and let's say you were a lot newer, and you come to me and you say, well, I believe in this market. I just moved there, because I'm jumping into this, no matter what, I'm that committed. Like, that's going to impress me. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This guy's committed. I'm going to give you a little more of my time.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, but speaking of commitment, my very first deal that I did, my very first bigger deal is a $1.6 million purchase price, 1.675 purchase price, asking, right? And I happened to call. It was on LoopNet, which, for all your listeners out there, LoopNet is where deals go to die. Never be very careful about buying stuff on LoopNet. But I just happened to have LoopNet up. And I had a small deal with a property manager, and the property manager was selling this deal. He had to post on LoopNet. So I said to him, I go, hey, this deal, it's on LoopNet. Tell me about this deal. It just happens to be up there. I was on the phone with him. He tells me about this deal, and I'm like, what's the bottom line number? 1.47. I'll take it. Send over the PSA. I signed the PSA, executed the PSA without even looking at the property. I don't recommend people doing that. All right. I don't recommend it. But the thing is, I committed. And then right after I did that, I immediately hit the phone, started calling people. Hey, I got a great deal here. Here's a cost per unit. Here's expected cash flow. I knew the market. I already been living in Ohio. I knew the market. I knew what I was dealing with, right? And it's a great deal, right? So, but I committed. I signed a PSA and sent the earnest money before I even knew what I was doing, right? It took a commitment because I believed in the deal and I believed in the market. People are afraid to put up $30,000 in an earnest money, right? I did it. That was all the money I had. I did it, right? And it was like, most people are complaining, they're worried about the $30,000 student loan. That's the wrong attitude, guys. So that's my earnest money on a deal, $30,000. It's nothing. When you start making $30,000 a lot of money in your head, you're going to lose. $30,000 is not a lot of money. It just isn't. It sounds awful to say it. I'm sure many of your listeners will be like, oh, who's this guy? Why would he say something like that? No, I'm telling you, when you start living to your potential, and you start realizing that when you train and you study and you really get to understand what this business is, what the potential is, you will win, and you commit and decide you're going to win. You're going to realize that's all small potatoes. We've been trained to think in small potatoes. We've been trained to think in small numbers.
So let's circle back to the mindset piece just for a second before we go to some other questions before we run out of time. But you had the W-2 position, you lost that job, you lost, the vehicles, the home, whatever, you sold all that stuff so you could commit to that. But you weren't, you said your father wasn't an entrepreneur. But where was the mindset shift for you, and what triggered that? Like for me, I can relate back to some military experience, law enforcement, different ways that the mindset had to be right because it depended, other people's lives were counting on me performing. In the military, law enforcement, whatever that was. And that was some great training for me. And like for you, where did that mindset shift change?
It happened over several jobs, right? So, and I mean by jobs is when you're working for a company, then you get canned. And not because I'm a bad employee or whatever, it is partially my fault for going to work for a crappy company. I did plenty of that. There's plenty of crappy companies out there. And I remember I was telling you I was sending out 500 resumes a week, right? So if anybody got an email, they're getting my resume, all right? And I'll go work for you for some amount of time, and then I'll end up leaving or something, right? Non-committal, right? Lost, just floating around, doing whatever it took to get whatever paycheck that I can possibly get. Stupid, right? But when you go from company to company and then you get canned enough times, and it's like you realize, like, what the hell is wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? Am I like something wrong with me? What's going on, right? What's going on with me? And it's a great deal of frustration. But it's when you get canned enough times and you realize that you need to take control of your life. Like in that last gig that I was working, when they said, you know what, you're done, and I said, I'm just not doing this anymore. I refuse to allow my life to be dictated by anyone else but me. That's the decision that I made. I will be in control of my life. And when I made that decision, right, here's the thing: when you're able to make that decision, especially as a man, you are able to be the rock for your family. You're the rock for your spouse. Your kids, they look up to you. And that's, I mean, for me, that's what I want it to be. That's the person I want it to be in my head. I decided that's what I was going to be. And I'm not saying that you have to be an entrepreneur to do that, but more along the lines of when you experience enough failure like I did, I mean, I must have cycled through, Whitney, I don't know, 20 jobs, 20 executive level jobs in that 10-year time frame at least. I mean, you're talking like 6 weeks or 6 months. Like I'm cycling, going to a different place. I was moving from city to city, right?
Sounds like that what may have been thought of as a curse at the time, you know, that person letting you go was a big blessing, because now you can spend 6 weeks in another country if you want.
Well, man, listen, I mean, I'm not going to say this just to be, you know, not to show off, but if you do this right, if you do this business, and I swear, if you commit to this business, so, like someone like me, I mean, I can make more net worth in one deal than I can make in an entire year as a C-level executive, right? It's like when you put it in that perspective, it's mind blowing, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, it isn't like I'm living high off the hog. I'm not driving my Tesla just yet, or anything else like that, right? It's coming, but this is right now. I'm in the building phase, right? And that's another key aspect that many listeners need to understand. As a guy that's been through the 2008 crash, which is a complete disaster. I started a company during the crash. It was terrible experiencing it, but leading up to that crash, that mirrors what's going on today. Money is very inexpensive. If you train and you apply the rules of this game, this business, and you start building this business, when the next crash comes, if you build it properly, you're going to be just fine. Because this cycle, I don't know if there's going to be another one like this. The buildup that's happening right now, and you know, and I don't want to get all political, but you know, hey, listen, the current administration, it's working. Whatever they're doing, I don't know. I'm not going to get political. Whatever it is, it's working. There may not be a second chance for you. If someone's listening in their 40s right now, do you really want to be 60 years old trying to do this thing? The time is now. You have to do it now. There is no other chance, and there's no. You don't get a second chance around this ride. You get one ride. That's all you get.
You get started. Hurry up. All right. So, All right, Agostino, before we run out of time, I got a few more questions for you.
Yes.
But you know, what's been the hardest part of the syndication journey for you?
You know, I'll tell you, it was really making the decision, right? And that's what it was. I'm going to say I was on the fence, right? But I didn't know what was on the other side. That was the thing, right? I didn't even know that all this stuff was an option, right? So meaning that, you know, I started up software companies. I've started up mobile app companies. I've started up debt collection companies. I've started up asset management companies. I've done all kinds of stuff. And I would have to go to a lender and like basically beg and plead, please, can I get, $200,000 to fund this business, blah, 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 versus this business where it was lenders are calling me, asking me, hey, do you have any deals? Because we want to send you a few $1 million to, get this deal done for you. Right. The hardest part, though, I didn't know any of that stuff existed. So now for the people who are listening to your show right now, they know that they can do this. So now the hardest part, make the decision. Make the decision that you will be successful. That's it. I mean, that was the hard part. I didn't understand that was even an option. And now once I understood that was the option, and then letting go of all the fears, right? Because I think for many people, that job, that 40-hour-a-week job that's given to someone else, that's given by a company that outlines their goals, they're defined by that job, right? So, and I was the same way. When I got canned every time, what did I tell myself? I'm nothing. I'm a loser. I suck, right? For many people, I'm not the only one. There's millions of people out there the same way. That job defines them. And if they lose their job, they fall apart. That's why losing a job is harder than going through a divorce. I guess I've read something in some magazines somewhere. It's harder going through a divorce, or it's harder than breaking up, losing a job. It's ridiculous, right? But once you overcome that fear, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't agree more. As far, sky's the limit. Once you, like you said, when you were laid off, it seemed like a curse at the time, but ultimately it opened a big door for you to change your mindset and move forward in a lot bigger direction. But how are you preparing for this next potential downturn that everybody's talking about?
The way that I underwrite my deals, right? So as we didn't really talk about the syndication side of things, but I specialize specifically in the Ohio market. I still do, even to this very day, right? At some point in the future, I'll be switching to a different market, but for the time being, I'm still buying that market. Still buying Cleveland, the submarkets, this primary, secondary markets. That's it. I stay out of the tertiary markets. But whenever I underwrite my deals, I underwrite very conservatively. I don't go crazy. I don't buy on brokers' pro formas or anything else like that. I buy off the current numbers, right? And which is very different than how most people do it. They'll look at a deal. They'll say, well, I'll increase the rents by X and I'll reduce expenses by Y, and then and then, oh wow, look at this thing cash flows like crazy. No, you underwrite it as if you cannot do anything, as if the previous guy is the best operator in the world. That's the deal, right? That's because you don't know how well an operator they are, right? So I underwrite conservatively. All right. We always overraise more money than we need. Most times we actually oversubscribe in our deals, which is great. So we do that. And then we create efficiencies around our operations. So when the downturn hits, we're not forced to sell anything. We're not forced to do anything we don't want to do. Right. It's so the operating efficiently is absolutely critical, because I think that for many people out there right now, that especially listen to our shows and other podcasts as well, there's always this big emphasis: hurry up, get into a deal, hurry. Yes. You know what's even harder than getting into a deal is operating it for 10 years straight profitably. That's hard. That's hard work. All right. That's very, very tough. So operating it and building those efficiencies are absolutely critical today, while it's still possible to do. So when that downturn does come, and it will come, I don't know when, but I'd say, maybe 6 years at this point. When that downturn does happen, it's you want to be prepared. You want to be ready. That's how you prepare. So underwrite conservatively, raise more money than you need, and make sure to operate your deals efficiently, so you're not forced to do anything you don't want to do.
So tell me, what's a way that you've recently improved your business on the syndication front that we could also apply to ours?
I would say that the one thing that we do that not many operators do is we do the weekly KPI meeting, right? So every week, every property has a KPI sheet, right? And we go through the potential dollars raised, how much was raised this month, or not raised, but how much was brought in this month, occupancy levels, like how many setouts we have, all these different things, right? we talk to our managers every week, at least once a week. I talk to them every day at this point, but we go through and we basically outline every single thing that's going on with each individual asset, one by one, right? I mean, it takes several hours to get through it all, but that's the only way you can keep a close eye on everything, right? And then aside from the KPI list, there's another sheet, and then that's a task list of all the things that we said we're going to do last week, where are we this week, and what's going to happen next week, that kind of thing. Instituting those sorts of controls helps you keep an eye on things. And then one thing that we're looking at doing now is implementing some cost controls on our expenses around submetering. That's the latest thing that we're looking at doing, right? And some of these assets, some of these C-class assets, water is expensive because of things that the city did, and I'm going to get into it right now. It's just too much. But if people tend to waste stuff if they're not paying for it, so we're going to be instituting some submetering to push those costs back onto the tenant, right? And we're going to watch our water bills just go down. It's going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but before we have to go, tell us how you like to give back.
One thing that I do is we actually do coaching. So right now we're doing a live coaching. We're revamping our entire website for 2020. So we're going to have a lot of online coaching as well. It's going to cover everything from mindset and goal setting to how to buy deals to even operations. So we're going to cover the whole 9 yards, right? But even aside from that, I'll get people that reach out to me on Facebook and ask me questions about a deal or how do you find financing or whatever. And I don't mind talking to people. I don't mind engaging with them and helping someone out, because I remember when I first started, I had no one. I didn't even know what I was doing, right? And I had to start reading books to learn. I didn't have anybody ask any questions because I just didn't know. And that's why I'll spend some time. I'll talk to someone about, hey, here's what you need to do. We actually I even have a couple of ebooks as well. So one of the biggest things is how to talk to a broker. And if you call a broker up and you don't know what to say to them, they're going to hang up on you. Simple as that. So if your listeners, they want to text freedom to 202-410-4202. Again, that's 202-410-4202. Text the word freedom to that phone number, and I'll send you a free ebook on how to talk to brokers. It'll cover everything from how to dress, how to act, what to say, how to say it, everything, right? So that's one thing that we do to give back. We also have another book on how to raise capital as well. So that might be in the same email as well. So if they send it, same phone number, 202-410-4202, they can get those ebooks, and would love to share that with everyone. But that's one thing that we're doing right now.
That's a lot of great information. I mean, as far as that conversation when you're starting with brokers, people are nervous about, kind of like the conversation with investors that you probably cover in the other one, Raising Capital book. So, so tell them also any other way they can get in touch with you.
Go to bulletproofcashflow.com. We're all over Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. If you just Google it, you'll find me.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.